Hello, Simon.
Hello, Bruce. How are you today?
I'm tip-top and spiffing.
Both very good qualities to hold. Congratulations.
How are you?
I am not going to bother to think of a witty response because I think tip-top and spiffing have just peaked us out there. So
Very
I'm
good.
all right, thank you.
I'm pleased to hear it. Welcome to another episode of Factoraly.
Yes, indeed. For anyone who is here for the first time, welcome. For anyone who's here for the umpteenth time, thank you so much for persevering.
Are you not getting bored yet?
So this is Factoraly. This is a weekly podcast in which two beautifully soporific and soothing British voiceover artists come together and have a chat about random facts, useless trivia, and fun stuff like that. So, Bruce, what is the topic we are going to be discussing this week?
Diet.
Diet.
Or diets, depending on which way you want to look at it. So we should really start somewhere, shouldn't we?
Let's start with the word diet itself.
Okay.
Diet is one of those words that's come through quite a few different languages and a few different variations before arriving here in English. It's gone through French, it's gone through Latin, but originally the word dieta, D-I-A-I-T-A, dieta, was a Greek word, and it simply meant a way of life.
Okay.
So one's diet is the kind of food that you eat. That's your way of life.
There are subdivisions of all sorts of diets, being, a carnivore or something like that.
Yes.
You can be more specific, obviously. There are piscivores who only eat fish, insectivores, things that eat insects.
Yes.
How about, okay, I'm going to give you a quiz now.
Oh, goody. I love a quiz.
Here we go. Avivore.
Someone who only eats birds.
Correct. Corallivore. That's quite easy.
Someone who only eats coral?
Correct. Not someone, something.
Oh.
Could be a fish, obviously.
Could be a fish, of course, yes.
Okay. Keratophagy.
Carrots. There's something that only eats carrots.
No, it's eating horny material like wool. So moths are keratophages.
Is that right? Well pronounced.
Lepidophagy.
Lepid. Lepid. Is that some kind of grasshopper?
It means eating fish scales.
Oh. Ugh.
Last two. This is quite easy. Vermivore.
Vermin?
Worm.
Oh, verm.
Birds are vermivores.
Oh, I see. Oh, well, that's brilliant.
And finally, which is one I quite like, ophiophagy. You won't get it.
Ophi.
O-P-H-I-O-P-H-A-G-Y. Phagy means eating.
Sure.
It's like, vor. It's the same thing.
No, I don't know.
Eating snakes.
I should know that because I'm ophidophobic.
Oh, there you go then.
So I should have got that.
There you go.
That would not be the diet for me.
Those are just the carnivores. Then there are herbivores, things like frugivore.
One that eats fruit.
Correct. Nectarivore.
One that eats nectar.
Correct. Let's see if we can give you a slightly more difficult one. Folivore. That's quite easy.
Foliage.
Yes.
Leaves and things.
There's things that eat non-living or decaying matter.
Okay.
Coprophage. Then you've got kleptoparasitism, which is stealing food from another animal.
And then, of course, you've got vegetarianism, veganism.
Yes.
Freeganism.
Oh, what's a freegan?
Freegan is someone who only eats free food.
Freeganelle.
So, they take advantage of places throwing out the food at the end of the day's shift.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Or sort of scavenging in waste.
So it's not like sort of just going to a restaurant and just helping yourself to somebody else's
and just
food.
refusing to pay, yes. That might come under freeganism as well, I don't know. So there are quite a few different varieties of diet, aren't there? There's not sort of one size fits all. Different species, different creatures, different people, different habits eat different ways. And this is something that sort of makes it a little bit difficult to officially ascertain what is the right diet. There are so many different ideas and fads of, a Western versus an Eastern diet, a Mediterranean diet versus, something that's high in fat, low in fat, high in carbs, low in carbs. Everyone is so different. Some diets will work better for some people than they will for others. So it's very difficult to put your finger on what is the best diet for any creature, let alone us.
Yes. Shall we come back from creatures to us?
Shall we?
Shall we?
I can't speak on behalf of all the creatures. But there's sort of a fairly unanimous agreement that within humankind, the Mediterranean diet is quite good for you.
Yes.
Not necessarily perfect, and not necessarily perfect for everyone. But the Mediterranean diet, which is sort of practiced, as the name suggests, anywhere around the Mediterranean. So, Greece, Italy,
Spain,
yes. France, all the nice, warm, sunny countries. And these diets consist of quite a lot. There's actually quite a lot of variety, which is one of the benefits of it. You're not just sort of pigeonholing yourself into any one particular type of food. But the Mediterranean diet kind of suggests you should eat a high amount of fruit, vegetables, nuts, legumes, and of course we all know the difference between the two of those, seafood and olive oil. You should eat a medium amount of poultry, eggs and dairy, and a low amount of red meat. So it's not ruling anything out, it's just saying, more of this, some of that, less of that. And this Mediterranean diet, people who practice that diet seem to live a good, long, healthy life. They seem to be less prone to chronic illness. They seem to be less prone to depression.
Yes.
There's an awful lot of theory around these days that the type of food you eat affects your mood.
Is that correlation and causation, though? If you live in the sunshine by the seaside.
Yeah, exactly what I was wondering. Yeah, sort of living in that lifestyle, does that correlate? It's sort of nurture over nature. But there are other cultures that believe this as well. I've been reading in my voiceover work. I've been reading some scripts from China, and they're constantly comparing themselves to the West, quite stereotypically sometimes. Look at us, we eat healthy food with lots of fruit and veg. Look at them, they eat nothing but hamburgers. So, it's a little bit stereotype. But they are suggesting the correlation between food and mood.
Well, it's garbage in, garbage out, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely that. So I can see that there's a correlation. But at the same time, I also know when I'm in a low mood myself, I just want to eat chocolate and ice cream. So I don't crave a nice crunchy vegetable.
No. I think I'd cheer myself up with this celery. Of course, on the east of the Mediterranean, you get eastern countries which have their own religious dietary laws.
Sure, yes.
So there's kosher, and there's which is practiced Jewish dietary laws, and there are Islamic dietary laws, like halal.
Halal.
Generally, it's to do with what's allowed and what's not allowed in the specific book that each religion believes in.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are quite interesting, like joint things. Like both religions believe that you shouldn't eat animals with fangs.
Okay.
Cats, dogs, lions, bears. Both traditions don't like that. Amphibians and reptiles prohibited. But there are some which are okay in both, like cows.
Right.
To be kosher, aquatic animals must have scales and fins, for example.
So no dolphins or whales?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Insects. You're allowed in Islamic law to eat insects if they're dead.
Yeah.
There are kosher insects. Locusts and grasshoppers are kosher.
Right.
But I mean, they both emphasize cleanliness, purity, and, following the religious texts. So part of a diet is when not to eat. I mean, for example, you're on a intermittent fasting diet at the moment?
I am, yes. I'm currently doing IF, yes. So I abstain from food during the day,
yes,
and I only eat in the evening.
Well, that's a bit like Ramadan.
Yes, it's a form of fasting, yeah.
So the 9th month, you fast from dawn until sunset, and you can, you're allowed to eat what you like, but not when the sun's up.
Just at the appropriate time,
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are so many different diets and there are so many different points of view. I've read very good scientific arguments as to why intermittent fasting is good, and another one as to why it is bad. So it seems to be quite personal, quite subjective.
Yes. So long as they involve Nutella, you don't really care.
No, exactly, yeah. As long as I get my tablespoonful of Nutella each evening, I'm absolutely fine. So that sort of led me to have a look around diets rather than diet.
Okay.
And there are millions of them. There are far too many diets to name. I was having a look around calories and the fact that, back in my day, diets were all about counting calories. I was looking at what on earth actually is a calorie.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
We read the little diagrams on the back of your pack of sandwiches that you get from the supermarket. It says this many calories, yada, yada. It suggests, and this is different country to country, culture to culture, but in the West, it suggests that the average female should be eating around 2,000 calories a day.
Yep.
The average male, 2,500. To maintain your current weight. If you want to lose weight, you should eat fewer calories or burn more calories.
Yep.
And vice versa. But a calorie, if you look at those little nutrition wheels on the back,
yes,
calorie starts with a K. It's spelt K-C-A-L. Cal.
Which looks like kilocalories to me.
That's exactly what it is.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So it turns out a calorie with a small c is a scientific measure.
Yeah.
A calorie is the amount of energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius.
Wow. Okay, I've learned something today. That's brilliant.
It's not bad, is it? It's a good definition. And it's the equivalent to about 4.18 joules.
Okay.
For anyone who's interested. Very niche. So that is 1 calorie. It's a very small amount of energy required to do a very, very small task. Then you have a calorie, as we use it in nutritional terms, which is 1,000 calories. Okay. Because a calorie is so small that it's irrelevant. So the calories that we count are actually batches of 1,000 calories with a small c.
So from this point on in the podcast, when we say calorie, we mean 1,000 calories.
Kilocalorie.
Okay.
Yes, cool. Exactly.
There are some creatures that only have like 4 mouthfuls of food a day.
Yes, of course.
But then they do get quite a lot of calories from those 4 mouthfuls.
Sure.
For example, the blue whale.
I mean, it's got a big mouth for a start.
Got a big mouth. And it only has 4 mouthfuls of food a day.
Okay.
But each mouthful of food contains 457,000 calories.
Oh, my goodness.
So they have like 3 or 4 mouthfuls a day. They need about 1.5 million calories a day.
Wow.
But then again, animals can get a bit big. There was an elephant in Alaska that was like putting on a bit of weight.
Right.
And it was up to about 4.5 tons. And so they built a 6-meter long treadmill for her as like a running machine.
Right.
To knock a few pounds off her. And and they changed her diet a little bit and they made her hunt for food a bit more. And they reckon that she lost about half a ton.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's definitely, in Alaska, that's beach body ready for an elephant.
Wow.
Actually, talking of beach body ready, did you know that if you diet on holiday, you're 3 times more likely to argue with the person you're with?
Really?
Yeah.
That's a great study. Yeah, you don't really go on holiday to diet, do you? You go on holiday to relax and sample the local cuisine.
Yes.
That sort of led me into thinking about, are there different times of life, different tasks, different periods at which you need to take in more calories? That's the average that a person should be taking in per day in order to maintain their weight.
Okay.
But you sort of think about athletes or, bodybuilders or
mountain
like
climbers.
Mountain climbers.
People
Everest,
crossing the North Pole.
All of that stuff. People using, a massive, massive amount of calories to get through what they're doing. And that led me to Shackleton.
Okay.
Thank you to a particular listener who suggested this because I was having a conversation with them and they said, "Oh, have you thought about Shackleton? You know who you are." When Ernest Shackleton and his team went on an expedition to cross Antarctica in 1914, they took a lot of food with them, knowing they were going to be out there for a certain period of time, and therefore that's how much food they took with them. I read a menu for their Christmas lunch.
Okay.
For Christmas 1914, they served up anchovies in oil, jugged hare,
right,
turtle soup, whitebait, mince pies, Christmas pudding, figs, dates and crystallized fruit, tea, biscuits, rum and stout. Now, sadly, their ship got stranded and they were left on the ice for months and months and months before, being able to be rescued.
Yeah.
And all of that food ran out. So they had to sort of turn to what was local, which was to say not an awful lot.
No, of course.
But in order to keep their calorific intake, to cope with the cold, to cope with the trudging through the ice, they had to keep their calories up somehow. They came up with a recipe for something called hoosh.
Hoosh.
Hoosh. Hoosh.
Hoosh.
And this was a soup made of seal or penguin meat, quite a large quantity of seal or penguin fat, snow, which they obviously have quite a lot of, and crushed up ship's biscuits. And they essentially lived off this vile stuff just in order to sort of keep their energy high enough to get through. Brutal conditions.
Yeah, there are the diet options. There are special diet foods that you can buy. For example, there's Diet Coke.
Yeah, sure.
Who was a woman who was born in 1379.
Right. What? That needs explaining.
So there's in Britain's National Archive, they have a couple of Yorkshire whose name was Coke.
Okay.
Which is thought to be a variant of Cook.
Okay.
Had named their daughter Diet, spelt Diot. And she was born in 1379 in the West Riding of Yorkshire. So we have the first record of a Diet Coke is 1379.
Oh, that's so obscure. How do you find these things, Bruce? Presumably every time she stopped doing some work, she was having a Diet Coke break.
Ah, dear.
The sad thing is that the humour would have been completely lost on them at the time. Back onto the idea of increasing your calorific intake for special quantities of work.
Yes.
I had a quick look around athletes and that sort of thing, and I read an article about Michael Phelps, the American swimmer.
Oh, right, okay.
And when he went to the 2008 Beijing Olympics, he packed in an awful lot of calories to give himself the strength and energy he needed for his training. He was consuming around 10,000 calories a day, which is sort of 4 to 5 times as much as the average person requires, according to that earlier survey. And the amount of food that he ate in order to get these calories was astounding. For breakfast, I know we've already done an episode on breakfast, but hey, let's do it again. For breakfast every day, he had 3 fried egg sandwiches with cheese, tomatoes, lettuce, fried onions and mayonnaise, followed by 3 chocolate chip pancakes, followed by a 5-egg omelette, 3 sugar-coated slices of French toast, a bowl of grits, and 2 cups of coffee for breakfast every day.
Congratulations. You are now dead.
Yeah, right. For lunch, he had half a kilo of pasta, 2 large ham and cheese sandwiches on white bread smothered with mayo, and a couple of energy drinks. For dinner, he had a pound of pasta with carbonara sauce, a large pizza, and some energy drinks every day.
And how big was this man?
Slim. He was a professional swimmer in the Olympics. He just needed that amount of calories in order to do the energy.
Just to get through the swim.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that just sort of shows the balance of what you take in and what you do, how much you expend.
That's amazing.
If I were to eat that many calories and lead the sedentary lifestyle that I lead, I would be enormous.
Yes.
But if you're training to be an Olympic swimmer, it balances itself out.
Wow, that's a diet.
Isn't it?
We'd mentioned very early on fad diets.
Yes, go on. What have you found?
Well, there are loads.
There are.
There are loads. We know there are lots of different diets. You've got 32 teeth.
Sure.
So it makes sense to chew each mouthful of food 32 times before swallowing.
Doesn't it just? Yeah.
And this was a chap called, an American guy called Horace Fletcher.
Right.
Who invented this diet in the 19th century called Fletcherism.
Okay.
Horace Fletcher was known as the Great Masticator. And yes, chewing each mouthful 32 times.
Right.
Elvis Presley was very fond of a diet called the Sleeping Beauty diet.
Okay.
And this was basically you would sleep while sedated. And the idea is that you don't eat when you're sleeping and you don't feel hungry.
Oh, so you just spend a large proportion of your day asleep and therefore you're not consuming.
Yes. And there's scientific evidence that it may be true because there's a hunger hormone called ghrelin. And if you sleep well, you have less of this hormone that makes you hungry.
Oh, I see.
So obviously, it's hard. It's difficult to eat while you're sleeping.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Good.
Yeah.
Or you could spark up. You could get yourself a cigarette. In the early 20th century, cigarette makers were advertising their products as a weight loss aid.
Really?
Oh yeah. One in 1929, there was an ad that said "Lighter Lucky, and you'll never miss a sweet that makes you fat."
Wow. Please note, dear listeners, we are not advocating any of these diets.
Don't smoke.
No,
don't smoke. It's horrible. Even if it does suppress your appetite, don't do it.
Yeah.
You could always avoid a swamp.
I try to do that on a daily basis.
You do, yeah. In 1727, there was a guy called Thomas Short. I think he mistook causation for correlation.
Right.
Because he observed that fat people tended to live near swamps.
Okay.
So he's basically he suggested that they move away from the swamp.
I really want to throw a Shrek joke in there, but I can't think how.
Well, maybe you could do a Shrek reference with the tapeworm diet.
No, what's that?
So you eat a tapeworm in a pill.
Okay.
And then these baby tapeworms grow up. But there's a slight problem with this because they grow to about 25 feet long. And they cause seizures, meningitis, dementia, and they were outlawed by the government.
Okay, so we won't do that then.
No, you could try eating cotton wool balls instead.
Oh, I read about this one.
Basically, you just dip them in juice or something, and then you eat cotton wool balls. It's not recommended, really.
And they sort of fill up in your stomach and make your stomach think that it's fuller than it actually is, and therefore you stop eating.
Yeah.
But that's been widely condemned, hasn't it?
It has.
For the fact that you can choke on the cotton balls, and the cotton gets in your intestines and all sorts of nasties.
Pleasant. I mean, they were saying you can use tissues instead, but frankly, it doesn't make any difference.
Fine. Okay.
There's the slimming soap diet.
Right.
In the 1930s, people believed that you could wash away fat with soaps. Like there was one called Fat Oh No. It's like fat-o-no.
Brilliant.
And they were just hand soaps.
Okay. And you would eat that?
No, you would just wash away the fat.
Wow. That's very odd.
There's one that you and I might quite like.
Go on.
The drinking man's diet.
Okay. Listening.
No restrictions on gin or vodka.
Right.
You can eat steak and martinis. Lovely. You have like alcohol at every meal.
Okay.
And this was a book that was published in the 1960s. But it was declared unhealthful by Harvard University.
Aww.
I know.
That's a shame.
I know. There's a diet that Lord Byron was very keen on.
Right.
And actually, it's a diet that these days people still like, which is the vinegar diet.
Oh, I've not heard of that. What's that?
So you eat whatever you like, and you have like a shot every so often of vinegar with the mother in it, and the mother is what makes vinegar. It's like the cloudy stuff.
Okay.
And he had it along with a cup of tea and a raw egg. And then I think we had an episode on cereals, didn't we? We mentioned the reason for cornflakes.
Oh yes, we did as a means to reduce one's lustfulness.
Yeah, Sylvester Graham,
right,
the inventor of the graham cracker.
Okay, yeah.
He believed that people were fat due to too much sex.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
So he basically had an abstinence-focused diet.
Right.
And he would ask you to replace sex with graham crackers.
I mean, there's so much to say about that.
I know.
Probably most of it inappropriate.
Yes, it's a bit blue, isn't it?
A little bit blue.
But that's another thing, of course, you can do is wear blue glasses. That's the vision diet.
Right.
That's based on the idea that red and yellow coloured foods are most palatable, meats and fries and ripe produce. And if you wear blue glasses, this makes your food look less appetizing, which means that you technically might
so you
want to eat
don't
less.
fancy it so much.
Yeah.
Isn't that clever? Yeah. That's what a way to play a trick on your mind.
And finally, there's one which is basically a clip your nose while you eat diet. So basically, you cover your nose or clip your nose with your fingers, so you can't smell while you eat. Because we know that the sense of smell is actually quite a lot of the sense of taste.
Please listen to our previous episode on smells.
And so this blunts your sense of taste, which makes you focus on the actual appetite, and you stop eating when you're full because it doesn't taste of anything.
Right. Interesting.
So those are a few fad diets anyway.
I had a quick look, as often I do in these cases, at the Guinness Book of World Records.
Oh, yes.
There are loads. There are just so many records to do with this. Highest number of calories consumed, lowest number of calories consumed, longest period of time gone without eating food. It's just over a year.
What?
Still don't actually know how that worked, but it was.
Is that with drinking stuff?
Still drinking, but no actual food, no solid food for just over a year. Very odd.
Wow.
But I found the Guinness World Record. This is quite subjective, but apparently, according to Guinness, this is the strangest diet in the world ever. And this was a French gentleman called Michel Lotito, who was born in 1950. Around the age of 9, he suddenly realised he could eat glass and metal without it damaging him.
I've heard of this man, I think.
I've no idea how he could eat these things without it damaging him, but apparently
Monsieur Mange Tout.
Yes, so his nickname was Monsieur Mange Tout. Mange Tout meaning eat everything.
I thought it was those little peas that you...
It is, but you eat them in the pod, and therefore it's called eat everything because you eat the whole thing. But anyway, so from 1959 up until his death in 2007, so he lived, a reasonable length of time for someone who ate such a strange diet.
Yes.
He ate almost nothing but metal and glass and plastic and things like that.
For example?
18 bicycles, 15 supermarket trolleys, 7 television sets, 6 chandeliers, 2 beds, didn't say whether it was single or double, a pair of skis, a Cessna light aircraft, and a computer. I don't actually know how that works without, ripping your insides to shreds, breaking your teeth. I don't understand it at all. But
I guess people swallow wedding rings, don't they? So
yeah, but they're quite small. I mean, he's picked apart a light aircraft, Bruce.
I know.
Very odd. So yes, that's
Wow.
the world's strangest diet, according to Guinness.
That is definitely a strange diet.
So that's all the information we have around diet and diets. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning into us and subscribing and liking and telling your friends.
Absolutely. All the things which you are undoubtedly doing. Please come again next week where we'll uncover some more interesting facts from another seemingly dull subject.
Yes.
Thank you all for listening. See you next time.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.